Hey everybody, it's your pal Drew Dracy, Anchor to the Stars. I've done DC, Marvel, Cross-Gen, Dark Horse, Image, IDW, and a whole bunch more. And so since 1994. I wanted to go over, I wanted to do a format this episode similar to the Fantastic Four one I did a while back. The playing long ball with the subplots through various writers. And that was the interesting thing about continuity back then. I mean, continuity is sort of dead these days, and that's okay. Times change, and people write for the trade, so that means not really any subplots that could drag on. And it's good and it's bad, but I really liked, there was one book of Daredevil, 116. Didn't have to look at another book. I mean, there were some crossovers, like a Daredevil Iron Man one that was pure crap, and I'll cover that one in another future episode. There were some crossovers and issues, but they didn't go on for like 9 issues and such. I know I sound like a geezer, but I grew up reading comics in the 70s, and I sound like an old man, but back then there was no way of anticipating what would happen between one comic and the next, other than a cryptic next issue blurb. And we had no previews, no internet access. Interviews with creators would be published well after the comic book plot lines concluded, and the writing for the trade, has pretty much killed the possibility of subplots, unless it's some big mother effing trade. You might like the current format as being more accessible, and I totally get that, because what I do is I'll buy the first issue and skip and then until the end, until the trade paperback comes out, and with a few exceptions, the creative team will change from one trade to another. Okay, enough of that. Deathstalker is a character I took a liking to right off the spot, just like Daredevil. And my first issue of Daredevil had Deathstalker in it. And I'm going to show you. I'm going to jump a little ahead, and I'm going to jump on back. So everybody wait. Okay, you just wait. Okay, there. Here, my first issue of Daredevil. It was the summer of '74. I was almost ready to go back to school. Because of the jump in months, November usually meant like August, which means, around the corner is going to be going back to school, which I hated. And but this immediately grabbed me. What's funny, there were 2 comics on the shelves at the 7-Eleven, Hulk 181 and this one, and I chose this one. And I have no regrets financially because frankly, I like this story more. I mean, looking back, and I did eventually get Incredible Hulk 191. I got it fairly early on before it skyrocketed. So the Wallywood design costume is it's so perfect in its simplicity. There's just something about it. And I like how it's a dark crimson. Later on, when Frank Miller and others would do the character, he would sort of do a general red with some highlights here and there, but I much prefer this. So my first issue, and there is the Deathstalker. This guy he basically hung around for 5 years in Daredevil's title, and he always got away, and then not until let's find out together. I love his brim hat. You can't see anything but his eyes, his white skin, and he's called Deathstalker because his touch kills you if he holds you for like 10-20 seconds. But if you manage to break away, then you're just kind of like your nerves are shot, almost like you get electrocuted for with a low wattage. Get out of here, ant. It's ant season here in Georgia, so I'm going to go jump back. So he came up like a little before I started reading these books, and that's horrible. That's back when Marvel was going cheap on the books. They decided to do a single page 11 by 17, but splitting it into 2 pages. And anchors like Joe Sinnott could adjust for it, and Michael, but it's like Vinnie Coletta really didn't put any effort to make this pop. It just looks like it looks like something that's blown up too big in a scanner. But whoop, that's not it. My apologies. Okay, there. Okay, it starts off with this, Ramita cover. I cannot imagine what Heritage Auctions or somebody would pay for it. Sell it. Steve Gerber and Bob Brown created this Deathstalker dude, which we will get to in a minute. In the meantime, Gladiator is going through these FBI guys who are protecting Foggy Nelson's sister, Candace. She's sort of a hippie kind of laissez-faire gal, and but she's one of those. She gets involved. You know what I mean? Like she's just working at this one company, and she comes across the Ted Salas papers, the ones as in Ted Salas, the Man Thing, and it talks about how there's something that could create pollution, monsters that could survive, really bad ecology and such, and also it's really Machiavellian. And what's funny is it's the same origin as Swamp Thing, basically. And what's funny is he looks more like Swamp Thing from DC than he does Marvel. This one character, it goes on and on and on, and it talks about also to reduce the population growth, because that was a big deal back then. And so she spirited those away, and I love those reflections on the shades there. And people do give Vinnie Coletta shit. I do too in some spots. But sometimes he does some neat stuff. I mean, on Daredevil, I think he does a real nice job. So here is the first appearance of Deathstalker. And he has these elaborate bracelets, belt, and boots. And, it's okay. It's kind of neat. But somebody wisely decided to strip him down to the basics. And I don't know if it was editor Roy Thomas or whoever, but I like it. It just gets right to the, I don't know, it's more direct. I mean, why would this really deadly character have tons of bangles on him? He's trying to figure out the shapes. The Man Thing's confusing him. The Stalker is confusing to his senses, his radar senses, because Daredevil's blind. He relies on all other senses. Man Thing is just intrigued and curious, and Steve Gerber's writing this. He's the Man Thing writer. Gets a touch of death, and he's frozen for a little bit, which is weird because I can't. I would think he's too. He's too mushy, and he's too he's not quite a. He's not quite a solid individual. He's not a solid citizen. So that was kind of odd. But, he created Man Thing. So, or no, he didn't. He took over. So Daredevil takes a swing at Deathstalker, and his hand's frozen. He's rooted to the spot. But he manages to dodge. Here we see Deathstalker using one of his other powers is to become ethereal and vanish. And he gets struck from behind, drops. I really like these swirls. I really like these inks, okay? Shoot my head off if I don't mind video. So he's trying to find all this information about the Salas formula and where she put it and how much does Daredevil know. And she tells Deathstalker Daredevil knows nothing. And he decides to kill Daredevil, and he orders Gladiator to set the house on fire. And he goes, I wouldn't mind destroying you, but I'd rather have been in combat than this way. But I just can't disobey orders. And what's kind of funny, because I keep wanting to say desk jockey, but it's Deathstalker. It's so dumb. Why didn't you just touch him and kill him? It's like, oh no, we'll just take this chance and burn this house and see you later. The old villain thing. It's like, you'll never escape this trap. And that's a beautiful splash page. And there's our pal Foggy and his sister. And what happens is, So silly. Foggy's on the phone. He's telling, oh, you and Daredevil just come back to New York. So he says, because they sort of know each other, and Foggy really, he's kind of foggy. He hasn't figured out all these years that Matt is Daredevil. So Deathstalk's in the city. Doot, 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 doot. Really, that's such a dramatic splash page, because, the moon behind him, the frame, just really, and people have given Bob Brown so much shit. He did Avengers for like 2 years, and it wasn't a good fit. It was very awkward, and also he got saddled with some shitty anchors, and it just wasn't. Some people could pull off team books like Perez and Byrne and stuff like that, but doing team books is very hard. To frame a panel and such like that, but with a one-on-one character, Bob Brown, he's gonna shock you. He's this is where I first came across, and I was like, this guy's amazing. So charges in, and there goes the fadeaway. Shows up shortly later, and the touch of death. It's so cold. But then a policeman catches him, stops him. He's just about to be killed. But Daredevil's billy club weapon, here's the thing. It already tells you a gleaming red metal hook and cable spring from behind and stay in his hand. That should not belong there. It's like, Daredevil's billy club weapon? It's like, okay, we know this and we know that, and don't. It's just, but as I've said before, in the 70s, I'm 100% sure that if they did not fill a page with word balloons or captions, they were afraid they were going to lose their jobs, because Stan used to do that all the time, and Roy did it, and then these other guys did, but they don't. None of them. I can't say a lot of them did it as well, but also the times had moved on. You didn't really have to tell the reader exactly what they're doing. So goes to tackle. Deathstalker disappears. Heads up there. Genuinely spooky image, and the wispy effect that Coletta is bringing. Chances are he used either a little bit of whiteout that was partially dried, or he used a razor. I mean, I've used one before, because you get some nice uneven, white scratching marks in here. So Daredevil's going, where the hell, Salis formula and all this shit. He's like, oh, there's a Norman Osborn's plant was shut down when he was killed, and I like that, because I don't know at the time I knew nothing of Norman Osborn, but it ties into the Marvel Universe, because he was the original Green Goblin, and he did own plants. So and this is a really interesting version of his Daredevil's radar sense. It almost looks like a slinky, and I've never seen it used any other way, but that was fun. Daredevil, look at this background. Bob Brown's is really bringing it. Don't jump ahead. So there's some sensational storytelling going on here. I mean, Brown has the acrobatics of Daredevil nailed, and it's just a great battle scene. So knocks him into the acid or wherever the hell that bubbling shit is, and there's always one of those plants. So he took the guy's gun, threw the Salis papers away. It's like, no one, no country should have that secret, not even my own. And if Deathstalker is alive and free, what then? Well, oh yeah, he's dead, all right. Yeah. Oh yeah, that. You just know that. Okay. Now, Gerber had left the book, and for about half a year, Tony Isabella took over. Another ant, get out of here. For half a year, Tony Isabella did this great Hydra story with Daredevil and Natasha, and he brought back all these great Nick Fury characters from Hydra. So there's a beauty right there, and I remember this was the first issue I had bought off the stands that had that dreaded UPC symbol with the lines that they scan, and it just kills the dynamicism. Is that the right word? Is that how I say that right? Okay. So, yeah, the Wolfman, Isabella, and Bob Brown. And Bob did... Well, that's a cane cover there. That's beautiful. So, you know, some time passes. And we run into... Oh, come on. Come on! Did I get it? Nope. There we go. Torpedo. Okay, here we go. Gil Kane, Klaus Janson cover. I really love this effect, this like crinkled hip boot effect, but that was only for this cover. And introducing the most startling character in the annals of Marveldom. Not really. So it starts off with Matt quitting, you know, kind of over melodramatic, but he had a reason to, because the previous issue he and Torpedo were fighting, and they were fighting so much they ended up in carrying their fight into the suburbs, and it destroyed the house that this African American family lived in, and were horrified that they allowed that to happen. So, you know, that is a legitimate thing. It's not just him questioning or what's he doing with himself. In this museum, there's Deathstalker. So much fun with that cape. And he decides not to kill this guy, but just give him a little bonk. El Kabong. And he wants to steal these mirrors. Why? We'll find out. I don't know why. What's great? Hey, mister, don't bother. The museum's closed. I just tried to get into myself. I don't want your advice, woman. When Deathstalker wishes entrance, nothing shall bar us. But I just like, she's coming by, he's like, leave me alone. And she just takes off. He doesn't try and kill her. He doesn't try and knock her out. And so there's all these mirrors, and he's taking them off. And, you know, these are slightly resembling the female form. So he says, how immodest you are, my dear, but do not worry, for my eyes will soon look elsewhere. Great touch. I mean, Marv, you know, it's funny, Marv Wolfman said he never liked writing Daredevil, but he wrote a really good Daredevil for like a year and a half. So there's this Stalker to the skies, not to confuse with Deathstalker, and we don't know anything except he has to go back. E.T. has to phone home. So Science Pavilion. Now he's formed a gun, fashioned a gun out of those mirrors for, he thinks, it's really going to do something special. You know, okay, this guy's going, Stairway to the Stars. That goes out to the Sweet fans out there. Forgive my singing. Deathstalker now has his lens ray, and he plans to use it. And it's very fancy. But it's also pretty brittle. I wouldn't call it a really great idea for a death ray. And somehow they managed to be able to get on these stairs as if they were solid. And I always had the impression they were energy that this alien with the boots could get on. But don't matter. Yeah, they get in a tussle a little more, and there goes the... And it's never explained what the hell Deathstalker is going to do with a death ray. And especially one that's not what you'd call portable, and not one that you'd call very well constructed. So he gets knocked back, and he gets zapped by the alien. Woof, he's gone. Yeah. And he doesn't know. Is this the end of Deathstalker? Not right. Not really. So he takes off. Never see him again. Ever. 50 years later, never, ever see him again. That's okay, because it was just I don't know. I don't know if Marv just threw the ball out for somebody else to catch, or he just wanted to... who knows? I guess if I ever talked to Marv Wolfman, I would possibly know. But, you know, that's okay. I mean, you know, back then, as I've described, I mean, the Bronze Age, especially in Marvel, was just like the Wild West. So, there we go. A huge potpourri of top talents. So we go from, where did I write that down? Hang in there. Hang in there, everybody. Okay. So, let's see. Well, I mean, I wrote down the appearances that Deathstalker's been in, and because I'm such a dork, it was end of 114, 115, 128, 138, 148, 152, 56, 157, 158, 159. So, and this takes place over 5 years, and it's just crazy, but entertainingly so. And what's great is I liked Deathstalker that he wasn't caught, because he would just show up, and I didn't really think about it, really. And his motives were just always questionable, but I always thought I thought that was kind of cool for a while, because he would just show up and remain a mysterious character. And, you know, if his driving force was revenge for whatever, why didn't he kill Daredevil all the times before? So, anyway. Blah, 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 blah. I went a little too long with that sentence. Okay, now we jump to issue 138, and Death's Head shows up. The original Death's Head was Karen Page's father, who, I don't know how he became Death's Head. I don't know how he was a bad guy. It was just one of those crazy characters that I think Roy Thomas, Gene Colan came up just to have a villain. So there's some of that early John Byrne. He really was starting to show up everywhere in 1975 or 6, whichever year this takes place. Starts off with Daredevil, ends up at a Ghost Rider. Byrne was the first one to really do a great Ghost Rider. It was really, you know, with the even though the eyes, you kind of question it. I don't, but so it continues in Daredevil. I like telling the reader, "Hey, Karen Page is kidnapped. Deathstalker is enraged. Not even the Ghost Rider stuff." I mean, I guess they had to fill copies somehow, but again, that design is just really, it's so brilliant. I think in the 90s or 2000s they brought back Deathstalker, and I don't think anything became of it, or if it did, it wasn't memorable. So there's a lot of blah 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 blah, and look at that early open art of John Byrne, and look at all that bob. Again, I think it's because they felt obliged to fill in a page, and I think Byrne made all that room for them to ba. So, for whatever reason, he was Deathstalker. It's just so, it seems so random. He's like, "Tell me, woman, tell me the facts of your father's work to me. I need his information. He gave you the time displacement factors of his cobalt experiments, and I don't know." Apparently all the damsels in distress, they always had fathers that were scientists and knew these great secrets that could help conquer the world. And because for a minute there I forgot that wasn't Candace Nelson, that's actually Karen Page, Dee Dee's lost love. And I love this. Ghost Rider goes after him. The death touch does not affect him. That is great writing there. And it makes sense because he's got the, Hellfire sets him aflame. He's gone forever, I guess. But he says, I've seen him do that before. His uniform may be burnt to a crisp, but I'm not willing to believe that he's gone either. Smart man. So that was some time ago or later. And this next volume, I love these masterwork formats. I especially love the marble version, marble, as in direct market variant cover editions. And here's where it all comes together. Finally, and here's the thing: the character got bounced around from Steve Gerber to Marv Wolfman to Jim Shooter, and then to Roger McKenzie. Now, the last two writers I mentioned will be shown here. Some Lee Elias stuff. Okay, look, 148. Last appearance was 138. The last appearance before that was 128. It's wacky. Oh, that Pollard cover is so great. Pencil ink by Keith Pollard. And here we go. Jim Shooter and Gil Kane. They get both co-plotted. Klaus Janson, bring in the inks and bring in the colors. It's such a grimy street. It just doesn't look like conventional Marvel territory. And Klaus's colors were perfect. He always gave Daredevil this rim light, from one of those mini lights that are out and about at nighttime. So that makes no fucking sense. You know what I'm saying? So he knows Ronnie hears stuff's going on. He sees a guy named Norton. And he threatens to drop him. The word is out. Something big is gathering. Men on Pier 16. You better stay there if you want to stay healthy. And he listens in. Deathstalker. In a few hours, we are going to make a theft that I've been planned for months. It is very important to me. We must not fail. Deathstalker, Daredevil found us. So Nose Norton blows everything. Now shit gets real. Guy attacks T from behind. They both crash. Only because he doesn't want that guy to break his neck. He helped. Daredevil's such a good guy. So must not interfere with my plan. Plan? Huh? What? Your plans change every time you show up. So let's get down to some beautiful Gil Kane, Klaus Janson art. And one of the felons falls back. You stumbled against my hand. Oh, his heart stopped. He's dead. Gray Kane image. He throws some boxes on him, which means nothing. He takes off. Bah! I cannot waste time dealing with you. You have ruined my plans. To make money? I mean, that is not really a plan. He does not seem like your common villain like Paste Pot Pete or something. You would think he had something altogether more sinister. And you will find out he is, but there's speed bumps in his character because if they needed an issue, a villain this one issue, well, Deathstalker was handy to have around. And now this, I have mentioned before that I don't like Carmen Infantino's artwork, okay? And, please forgive me for that. It's just, I never cared for it. I think his best stuff was in the 60s on DC work, but even that, it just never set me, never set me flame. But, Janson, he makes it work. He could take one of my least favorite pencilers and make the art sing. And so this goes on later. Okay, a one-page view of Deathstalker. He's at a lab, and he goes, "Got you!" He kills the guy, and he gets this component and everything I need. I shall make Daredevil pay. Yes, you'll do. And this is kind of neat. The swirly thing that Infantino does. That it'll never be seen again. Is that style of fading out, but it's cool. And like I said, I feel Infantino always needed a real strong finisher, and I don't mean like in a clean style. I mean somebody that could basically overpower him, and like Jansen's good at that. And that's just me. Feel free to hate me. Okay, this is one of those dream sequence comics. I'm not big on dream sequences. To me, it's like if you've run out of ideas, then you do dream sequences. Like I would never write a dream sequence, and then you saw so many of them in the later X-Men books, and it's just filler, and it's just sort of I don't know. Well, Daredevil, he's half nuts because he got a concussion in his head from fighting Mr. Hyde and the Cobra. I'm jumping ahead. So he wins his battle in his mind. He wakes up. Here he comes. Shows up, ready to kill Daredevil. The people in the hospital are respectful enough of Daredevil and his good deeds that they kept his mask on. That happened also back with a Man-Bull issue years earlier. So it goes right into the next issue if I know how to turn a page. There. Continues. Mary Jo Duffy is doing the script for Roger Mackenzie's plot, and Roger's going to be on the book for a while. And what's interesting, not only are his appearances dragged out, but for a while, such as this time, Daredevil was bi-monthly. It was on the chopping block, ready to be canceled. So for several years, until like a year or two into Miller's run, it became monthly. So only time you ever see Deathstalker's eyes, and that's just a Gil Kane effect, and excuse me, Gene Colan effect. My apologies. Now, and he fades out again. I love the Zipatone there. I love me some Zipatone. I love it. Okay. End of the day, he's going to date Natasha, go out with the tickets, but got some tickets to a play. They had planned something. He had planned something else with Heather Glenn, his then current girlfriend. And this guy kind of sings, I can't compete with them. Okay, here comes the Unholy Three, which is the funniest name for these kooky characters. I mean, do you see anything like other than hilarity? I mean, maybe if they attack you, it'd be spooky, but they're just goofy. And Wally Wood came up with them way back when, in like 66 or so. And back then, all the bad guys were kind of kooky. And but they maintained these same costumes for some reason. They never updated them. And I think that's because they were just plot devices. You never really got to know. You never got to know them, the sensitive side. So Black Widow does her thing, but she's outgunned. And they kidnap. Oh, it's like, yeah, they kidnap. Did I say that? Oh, yeah. Okay, there we go. They kidnap Murdoch. Now, the first Frank Miller, and he's announced properly. From time to time, a truly great new artist will explode upon the Marvel scene like a bombshell. Ramblin' Roger Mackenzie, Kiki, Klaus Janson, Joe Rosen, George Rouses, amicable Al Milgrom, and Jim Troubleshooter confidently predict newcomer Lanky Frank Miller as such an artist. Now that's a hell of a statement. I was thinking at the time, I thought, well, okay, this is kind of neat, but I wanted Gene Cole and I missed him, because it was a new guy. I don't know if he's gonna grow or just have one good issue in him, and she's worried about Matt, and Heather says, we both know that Matt can take care of himself if anybody can. By Lenin's beard, does Heather know? I love that phrase, by Lenin's beard. That was always like a good fallback. What do you call? I'm not even going to finish that sentence, guy. You know what I'm saying? So, they mentioned Deathstalker. He's taken by big old ape dude. Ape man, cat man. And it's not Peter Criss from Kiss. There's your sacks of money. And there is Matthew Michael Murdoch. May it burn in hell. And after many, 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 many years, at last, an origin dating all the way back to issue 41, which was 67 or so. And we're talking 119 issues later. And at first glance, it looked like somebody played long ball with Deathstalker / Exterminator for 11 years, but it was just, I think, Mackenzie, I don't know if it was Miller Mackenzie, because Miller just came on as the artist at first. I don't think he had enough pull to really write anything, but Mackenzie's like, we got to wrap this up. It's like, this guy's been loitering in the, book for 5 years. So he explains that he was a character called the Exterminator during the Stanley Gene Colan era. And he has his time-space continuum gadget. He uses it on Daredevil in that previous issue, and somehow Daredevil's radar sense helps him get out of it. It's just back then, Stan and Gene were just doing stuff on the fly, and you ate it because it just looked so good. And it tasted good because it was cool. It was good. And so anyway, he had no way of getting out of the space-time continuum. And but he somehow eventually did. I mean, you have to really buy a lot into it. I mean, it's a lot of suspension of disbelief. What you believe to be my death proved instead a macabre rebirth. I found myself in a timeless limbo, unobserved. I could go anywhere, do anything, stand naked before people. Secrets were mine for the taking, and I took. I aimed. It was child's play to steal the AIM blueprints for the prototype cybernetic death grip. That's a very Kane hand, and you'll next few issues that I'm not going to cover. There's a lot of Kane swiping, but he's getting his feet wet, and he's got to learn. He's learning the ropes. So he hands the money. Oh, anyway, the Unholy Three recently died in like the second issue that David Michelini did with John Romita Jr. But the second issue had Bob Layton inking it, and the Unholy Three got killed. And so we'll just poach these off their dead, smelly bodies. And he hired some other guys, and they're like counting their money, and he's sneaking up. He's like, "Catman, Ape Man, look out behind you!" Fries them. I like the whiteout using for smoke rather than solid line. And he gets out of the ropes. Deathstalker, you gave me the time I needed to free myself, but you knew I would. But you knew I would. That's what you wanted all along. No, Murdoch, I want Daredevil. I see. It really had to come down to this sooner or later, didn't it? That is so badass, because people did not reveal secret identities to villains at the time. It just wasn't a thing. It wasn't. So this is like a battle to the death. It's gonna end. One way or another time, it's gonna end. So some beautiful, beautiful physical language and just really great choreography in the fight. And I just remember how excited I was. I'm like, wow, they're actually getting down with settling things forever. Takes out the lights. There's a couple. Where are you? Okay. And there we see the motif of silhouetted Daredevil with the DD still showing, which I love. I mean, it's an artistic choice. It's not real. It's not neon or whatever. You want me? Come and get me. And he grabs the neck of a statue. My hands. Look at that Jansen action. All those muscles. Klaus Jansen. Look at that little pink area there. Klaus is just a master. Klaus had done, the book for years and years over different artists. And so, he's like, give up, Deathstalker. It's over. Perhaps in time, with the proper health, damn you, Murdoch. Then damn your help. And he's heading towards Daredevil, but he passes out and he dies because he's not part of the statue. Two places cannot occupy. No two things can occupy the same place. So he's basically integrated with the statue, dead forever. And it finally caught up with him. May God have mercy on his soul. Now that is important, because before Miller really got to writing it, it showed that Daredevil was an Irish Catholic. At least that's how Miller would explain it later, but how many superheroes would say that after the fact? They would be like, oh, maybe, it's your nightmare is over and something like that, but may God have mercy on his soul. That's a very uncommon. But, I even found that it made sense for Daredevil even then, because he was a lawyer and he was conflicted in a way, because he was a lawyer by day following the law, and at nighttime he totally, he was lawless, and he was over the doing stuff that the cops should have been doing. Then next morning he gets up, does his lawyery thing. And I hope I did justice to this, because I got to cut back on taking so many takes, because there's little nuances that I put in my episodes that I'll miss, and I'll be like, I should have said that better, or I humming my way through. So anyway, that's it. I hope you enjoyed this, and please, if you like, hit like, and if you want, please hit subscribe, and please write comments below. I really want to see what everybody else says, and share with a friend if they're into this kind of stuff. And we know there are, because a lot of middle-aged guys like me that grew up in the 70s. And leave a comment. I will not edit anything. If you think I'm a dork or a loser, whatever, or make suggestions for future episodes. I would love that. And so that's it. And thank you if you made it to the end of this. Much appreciated. And have a good evening or afternoon or morning, whenever you're reading this.